Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Obviously, a massive win for the Oregon Ducks and Dan Lanning Saturday night against Ohio State. Coming out of the game, I think there are a couple of really big storylines for Oregon, but I think by far the biggest storyline in terms of the conversation of how good can this Oregon team be in 2024 was the emergence of Evan Stewart. And for the Oregon fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of weeks and really the last couple of months going back to the offseason, we've continued to bang the table for Evan Stewart being legitimately a top 10 wide receiver in the country. That's what we've seen from this kid going back to his days at Texas A&M. And a lot of you guys were frustrated in the comment section. I certainly expressed some frustration in terms of the lack of involvement that we saw Evan Stewart have. We certainly saw it against Ohio State, and I think the most important conversation is Evan Stewart getting involved in that way that we saw Saturday night. In my opinion, it unlocks another gear for this Oregon offense, and you saw Oregon once they kind of got that offensive line right, start to put their foot on the gas with this offense, but we always felt like there was another gear for Oregon to reach. We saw that gear Saturday night against Ohio State, an Ohio State defense that we're talking about, one of the best defenses that we see in the country. Like, my opinion on Ohio State's defense hasn't changed coming out of that football game. You look at the talent that they have on defense, it might be the best defense that we see in the country. And Oregon was able to have a lot of success in a large part due to Evan Stewart and what he was able to do working vertically down the field. Want to get into a little bit of the film in terms of how they involved Evan Stewart, why he was able to get some really favorable matchups in this football game. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Oregon fans, a sincere thank you to all the support y'all have shown the boys. It has been a blast talking about this program, specifically the last couple of days, whether we're talking the recruiting trail, whether we're talking about what we saw Saturday night. The amount of support y'all have shown the fellas, it's been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I want to start with what we saw from Evan Stewart. And this was kind of the conversation we had going back to the offseason, where what's the role that Evan Stewart is brought into play in this Oregon offense? I largely thought it was kind of to not necessarily replace Troy Franklin, but provide a lot of that verticality that Troy Franklin gave Oregon in 2023. You look at Tez Johnson's skill set, working those short underneath route trees, creating separation early and often in his route trees. What made Oregon so hard to defend last year is if you wanted to try to take away Tez Johnson, Troy Franklin had those one-on-one matchups working vertically down the field. We kind of thought Evan Stewart could play that role in this Oregon offense. That's exactly what he did Saturday night against Ohio State. You take a look at the numbers: 7 catches on 8 targets, 149 yards, a touchdown, also drew a pass interference, 21.3 yards per catch. That's exactly how we want to get Evan Stewart involved in this offense. Now, I'm not pigeonholing Evan Stewart into only a vertical threat. He's a well-rounded wide receiver that can do a lot of different things, but the verticality is what you want to start with. Now, you start getting into the film. I think the first rep I want to talk about is that vertical that he beat Denzel Burke in. What's Ohio State trying to do on defense? You're going to see a little bit of a cover 3 look here. Where's Caleb Downs, this center field safety? Where's Caleb Downs' eyes? It's right to Tez Johnson. Like, you can tell, and we're going to see a lot of reps like this where Ohio State's coming into this football game saying, hey, what wide receiver do we need to take away in this Oregon offense? The answer was unequivocally Tez Johnson. He's been Dylan Gabriel's favorite target up until this point. You take a look at this play right here. You're getting that cover 3 look where Caleb Downs, I mean, his eyes are right on Tez Johnson the whole way, which gives you that favorable one-on-one matchup for Evan Stewart vertically. You get a little hesitation and go. Evan Stewart puts Denzel Burke, really just took his lunch money all game, if we're being honest. This is a matchup that I personally expect Evan Stewart to win 9 times out of 10. And Denzel Burke's a very good cornerback. Evan Stewart made him look not very good. That's one of the better cornerbacks that I think you are going to see in the country in 2024. Evan Stewart largely took his lunch money the whole football game. Again, you go back to this play. Where are Caleb Downs' eyes the whole time? It's taking away Tez Johnson right here. And so you get that one-on-one matchup. Evan Stewart making it happen, working vertically down the field. Just absolutely Denzel Burke taking a ride on Evan Stewart's back. That's the first rep that you look at. And you can see it was very clear. The game plan was, where's Tez Johnson? How can we take him away? And how can we force Dylan Gabriel to go to other spots on the football field? Evan Stewart was that spot. Take a look at the red zone. And again, you look at Dylan Gabriel's tendency in the red zone. Over half of his touchdown passes leading into this football game have been to Tez Johnson. You take a look at what Oregon or what Ohio State is trying to do. Caleb Downs again right here playing the safety role. Where are his eyes immediately going? Second and goal from the 10. Immediately to Tez Johnson. And we're playing outside leverage with the nickel. We're playing inside leverage with the safety. What do you get here again? Evan Stewart one-on-one against Denzel Burke. Dylan Gabriel's going to this all day. Like back shoulder to Evan Stewart, allowing him to make some contested catches, which he's much better at than what Troy Franklin was last year. That kind of gets into the conversation of, look, Evan Stewart, I think, can do a little bit more than Troy Franklin can do within this Oregon offense. Dylan Gabriel takes that opportunity. Evan Stewart, phenomenal play here, getting the feed in, scoring a touchdown. But again, you go back to, where's the safety here? Like, who are they trying to take away in the red zone? It's Tez Johnson. And you're going to see a lot of teams try to do this. And if they're going to try to do this, you're going to have to leave Evan Stewart on a favorable matchup. And Oregon's going to take that every single day of the week. Again, I really good ball by DG. Really good play by Evan Stewart here. Now, you take a look at the last play. I love this concept. I hope Will Stein goes to this concept more. You're going to kind of run a levels route here. Ohio State, again, in zone coverage. They wanted to play a lot of zone because you know how good these Oregon wide receivers are, especially beating man coverage. So you take a look at the stack here. I love the stack here with Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart, but as you let this play go out, it's kind of a levels concept, right? You're going to run Tez Johnson into the flat. You're going to run Evan Stewart on a 15-yard out route. And this underneath zone coverage defender is going to be forced to choose between Evan Stewart going on the behind him or Tez Johnson in the flat. Who do we think he's going to choose? He's going to choose Tez Johnson, sticks with Tez Johnson going to the flat, opens up a massive throwing window for Dylan Gabriel to get it to Evan Stewart. Chunk gain, moving the chains on 3rd and 10. And then you go back and say, Dylan Gabriel is really good dealing with pressure today. And we've seen him, or not today, Saturday night, we saw Dylan Gabriel struggle a little bit under pressure the first 2 games. I thought Oregon's offensive line has been much, much better over the last couple of weeks. But here you get some pressure off the edge from a really good edge rusher in Jack Sawyer. Dylan Gabriel just stepping up into the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield. Again, this zone coverage defender goes with Tez Johnson, leaving a massive throwing window for Evan Stewart on 3rd down. Where has the football been going on 3rd downs primarily for Oregon? It's been going to Tez Johnson. Oregon kind of was hey, if you're going to try to take away Tez, we got another top 10 wide receiver that we have a ton of confidence in, and Evan Stewart made all the plays that he needed to. Now, the last thing I want to talk about the wide receivers. So you had Trayshawn Holden, who's kind of that primary 3rd wide receiver, and it's pretty clear that Oregon wants to go 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. The 3 wide receivers almost exclusively Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Trayshawn Holden. Obviously, Trayshawn Holden gets kicked out of the football game. Lowe has to come in. Lowe blocks his tail off, man. He only had, 1 catch on the day Saturday night. This is a massive play. I mean, 4 minutes left. You're down by 2. This is the game-winning drive where Oregon kicks the field goal to win the football game. 3rd and 6. Look at top of your screen here. Justice Lowe dogging Davis and Igbenos. You're going to run kind of a pin and pull concept. Quick toss to Jordan James. This is winning football. And again, Lowe only had 1 catch for 9 yards. This is how you do it if you're Lowe. Again, you don't get to play that much, but when you're on the football field, not only when your number's called can you come up and make plays, but getting it done, blocking down the field. I mean, this is a play that if you don't execute this block, you're looking at a 4th and 7. Lowe getting it done, moving the chains. That's winning football. That's culture. If you're Dan Lanning and this Oregon Ducks team, the biggest storyline for me, and again, I think there were 3 really big storylines. I think 1, the offensive line going up against an elite defensive line, I thought certainly held their own. And that was a question mark for us heading in for Oregon. I think number 2, this defensive line is significantly more dominant than we saw last year, where the defensive line was solid last year for Oregon, but it wasn't game record material. You saw guys like Derek Harmon and Mateo Yu dominate that football game. But I think the biggest storyline, particularly for this Oregon offense, is Evan Stewart unlocking that top gear for this Oregon offense. You look at the target share and say Tez Johnson had 8 targets, Evan Stewart had 8 targets, Burke had 8 targets. Trayshawn Holden probably gets a little bit more involved if he plays a full football game. they ran the football well too. So you look at, hey, how do we want to stop this Oregon offense? Do we want to try to take away Tez Johnson? Well, that's going to leave matchups for guys like Ferg and Evan Stewart. Do we want to try to take away the run game? Well, you're going to leave matchups for a lot of these different pass catchers that can do a lot of different things. Saturday night against one of the best defenses, maybe the best defense that Oregon will see all year, they were able to reach that top gear for their offense. I think a large part of it had to do with Evan Stewart unlocking this offense. If you can maintain that kind of offense throughout the rest of the season, this is an Oregon offense that it's just the amount of difference makers, the amount of ways they have to beat you. It's so many. It's going to be really hard, even for an Ohio State defense that has NFL talent all over their defense. They probably have 8 picks in the NFL draft on the defensive side of the football. They weren't able to deal with Oregon and all the firepower. So I think the question is, name me a defense that's going to be able to deal with the firepower and the multidimensionality of this Oregon offense. I don't know if you can. We saw a national championship caliber team Saturday night on offense. I think it had a lot to do with Evan Stewart. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.